Hello, Savannah. Hello, 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 hello. And welcome to another edition of Candidly Kesha. I am here today on this Monday, and I am here with a purpose. And I'm so proud to tell you, Savannah, that the bad news was wrong. The bad news was wrong. I am still your Alderwoman at large for Post 1 of the city of Savannah. Listen, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere until the people of Savannah say different. In 2019, I was voted in as Alderwoman at large for Post 1 for the city of Savannah. And since that time, I have served you as I stated I would. I stated that I would be your advocate, I would be accessible to you, and that I would inspire you. I have advocated for some of our most important causes, one in particular, reduction of crime. To no avail, we still have not approached issues related to our police department. Right now, our police department is as unhealthy as it has ever been. And for those individuals who we require to protect and serve our community, we as leaders should be in position to protect and serve our police department. And so when you have individuals who are making outcry from all ranks within our department, from all positions within our department, they are not making anonymous outcry. They are making themselves known, and they are acknowledging exactly what's wrong. And so we have yet to address those issues. In addition, we have had factors in our police department to include deaths in the barracks to officer involved shootings. These are very, very important issues, but most important among them all is the rate of the rate of homicide among African American men and boys, and the enormous amount of gun violence we have rampant in our streets. We have a public health issue. And unless and until you have a leader who is willing to be courageous enough, brave enough to address the issues, but acknowledge that we have a problem. We cannot solve the problem until we address the problem and say it out loud. We can no longer go on putting the public at risk. When you have 13 and 14-year-olds who have in their possession guns where they can shoot within minutes 50 and 60 rounds into homes that are occupied by children, shoot cars, we have a problem. And so we want to make sure that we are doing all those things necessary to incorporate measures by way we are not losing police officers to the extent that that number is outgrowing the number that we are actually recruiting. In addition, we love Savannah, and we want the people who were born and raised here and who live here to love Savannah as much as people who move here, tour here, and work here. Right now, not only are our neighborhoods becoming gentrified rapidly, before long, the working class of any race will not be able to live in Savannah. The average rent right now for a 2-bedroom apartment is $2,800 a month. When you match that with the average wage between $12 and $13 an hour, who can afford that? And that, my friends, is why we have so many families living in overcrowded, unsafe conditions. We have so many families who are occupying extended stay hotels as their homes. In fact, one hotel just said, let's just go ahead and turn into an apartment complex. As novel as that idea is, those units that they will be turning over to apartments will not be affordable by the average worker in Savannah. Between November and January, we approved the petitions of developers to the tune of over 1,000 units. We have talked for 2 years about affordable housing options, affordable housing, but yet we are not producing in real time the number of affordable housing units that will rival the number of market rate units. And so we want to be about the business of protecting our neighborhoods to the extent that we are not allowing special use permits and giving developers approval for their petitions when it involves turning our neighborhoods where we have had seniors who have worked for decades to secure their homes, only to when the next tax bill comes, they can't pay it because you now are neighbors with a condo that just sold for $750,000. This is happening in Savannah, Georgia. So we want to continue to work toward rectifying all of the wrongs. We want to continue to make sure that we are a voice of reason and that we are brave enough and courageous enough to call out those things that are consistent with wasteful spending. Like with our arena project, if you pass there now, you are looking at Gwinnett and Stiles. You're looking at the single largest construction project in the history of Savannah. $165 million, a little bit more, give or take. It doesn't look like a $165 million project. That's the first thing. The second thing that you won't see is the invisible wasteful spending, and that is for the parking. We are investing nearly $19 million in brick, in grass, and dirt. And this isn't something that we will own. Most egregious is that we are leasing. We have a 5-year contract to lease property at Chatham Steel, $550,000 there about a year. The lease started in 2020. We paid a whole year toward a $5 million contract, and we can't use it. You know why? Because it's deemed as unenvironmentally safe. So not only are we leasing the land, but we also have to develop it for the parking. We have to pave it. That's a couple million. But then we now have to mitigate it. Another $7 to $9 million or so. And so when you see that level of spending, recognizing that the pre-existing neighborhoods of Carver Village, Cloverdale, and Brickyard, they already had issues related to flooding. I would imagine that there are so many structural and environmental issues in that area. And we build this big arena called, does everybody know the name of the arena? It's the In-Market Arena. Yes. We made a pledge to the sustainability community to become a clean energy city in 10 to 12 years. But we named our single largest construction project after an oil company. That's duplicitous. I don't know that that's inflammatory, but it's duplicitous. And that is when you say one thing, but you do another. And that has been the constant and consistent theme of this administration. Those dynamics, coupled with the level of abuse that we are subjected to, that play out in the public. And unfortunately, I do not and cannot compete with the amount of paper owned by Savannah Morning News and the airways owned by TOC, JCL, and SAV. But what I can do, when I have your attention and when I have your voice, I can speak truth to the power and hold the powerful accountable. And that's what we intend to continue to do. We want to make sure we are going about promoting equitable policies, equitable behavior. What does equitable policies do? What is equitable behavior? What is equality and what is fairness? Well, as I shared recently, all of that trickles down to dollars, economics. You see, as a woman, you can mistreat me. You can think ill of me. As an African American, you can be indifferent toward me. But what you cannot do is you cannot withhold any advantages or opportunities from me because I am African American or because I am Black, right? I'm sorry, because I am a woman and because I am Black. So when we look at these elements related to racism versus discrimination and prejudice, we recognize that we all, to some degree, have some level of prejudice about something where it comes to those things that we like versus what we don't like. Some people have an aversion toward tattoos, or people who have multiple piercings, or if you wear your hair a certain way. I can have a dislike toward those things or those people. You can as well. But that's called a prejudice. That is a prejudice. Is it right? No. Should we engage and should we do it? Should we work on it? No, we shouldn't do it. We shouldn't engage. And yes, we should work on those things where we attempt to judge a person because they're different from us or because they prefer something that we would not do or that we would not engage in. Discrimination is akin to those themes. But when we get to racism is when you use those prejudice to deny opportunity to a person. That's what you are not allowed to do. That's actually illegal, right? And so we want people to start focusing less on the semantics of the words and focus more on what actually is happening when those acts are committed. And so I recently have acknowledged that an individual's behavior and rhetoric was racist. That individual, Nick Palumbo, still to this date has not answered my question, are you a racist? I asked him 3 times and he never answered. Because what I was acknowledging was his rhetoric, his response, and his behavior toward me was racist when you are continually interrupting me and attempting to hold me back from advocating for policies related to those things that will support our vulnerable communities specific to African Americans where they are experiencing gentrification and forced displacement from their neighborhoods. When African American men and boys are being shot and killed on the street, and I'm advocating for stronger policing that's consistent with community policing, with staffing, that's not allowed. And so further, when we look into the city of Savannah and we look at some of the maneuvering and the engagement that has been allowed by leadership in our community, like, how could you cancel MLK Day but allow St. Patrick's Day? That's when you start to pitch groups against each other. That's not what a good leader does. And you can say, oh, the committee canceled it. It wasn't. Here's where I say to the community, stop allowing yourselves to be gaslit. Don't allow someone to create these distractions that take us off of the direction in which the city should be going into. We further have elements that are consistent with these pieces where there is no fairness, there is no equity, and we start to see behaviors of racism creep in, is when you allow your assistant to give herself a $15,000 raise, and you have 2 African American women working in the office who have been working there for decades, making almost $20,000 less. And this person's sole job is just to follow you around. Then we have another situation where you have a city manager who comes in and who's serving the city less than 6 months. And you advance white people within the administration, specifically one who is sort of on the edge of things, not a top performer. But you have a lady who worked in sanitation for the city of Savannah in excess of 10 years. She leaves making $15 an hour, $15.05 an hour. But after 5 months, she returns to work back in sanitation. And they start her off with $13.46. She was only gone 4 months. Now, she had a choice. She signed off on the employment agreement. You got to know a person who would subject themselves to that behavior or to that treatment doesn't have any other options. She's coming back to the city of Savannah to drive a garbage truck. It gets the attention of one city manager and they say, well, we can't go that far back and make this right. That's too much money. But it wasn't too much money for you to give a person on staff who was not a top performer, who has some shady shenanigans in their history within the city of Savannah, like allowing one assistant chief to maintain his same salary and another person who has more education, more income, more experience, and more responsibility within the organization. And that person has to nearly threaten to sue, who is an African-American male. His counterpart was white. And so these are the behaviors that are consistent within the city of Savannah that makes the entire administration, our government, racist. And so as leaders within the organization, we perpetuate the foolishness when all we can do is create a task force, as opposed to just tackling these issues head on, making an example of the inequity of these situations, and do the right thing. Do the right thing by the people. And so unless and until we can do that, we will continue to go down this dark road where we have no policies consistent with inclusionary zoning. We have no policies related to anti-gentrification measures. Further, we have to now start to make sure we are having individuals who are the giants in our community pay their fair share. There is no reason why we should not be engaging within this administration, as well as past administrations, with the Savannah College of Art and Design, who own over 170 properties in this city. And they don't pay taxes on one building. You pay more taxes, homeowner. You pay more taxes on your one house versus their 168 properties. And we don't want these Johnny-come-lately little handouts to appease us. Your mayor allowed the Savannah College of Art and Design to come in and hijack a film production opportunity from the 5th District. Now they will have to piecemeal together whatever they can to salvage film development and opportunities for jobs for that community and for the Fairground project. You don't want someone who's simply going to go to dinner, fly around in the private jets, and shoot whatever around the golf course. What you need is someone who is going to help these individuals understand that no longer can they, as the winners, take all. They have to be about the business of paying their fair share. We then want to heal our city staff. We want to heal our city staff by helping our city manager recognize his rightful place in power within our local government. Savannah has a council manager form of government. That means the city manager is the chief executive officer. The mayor, along with the council members, have one vote. And so we need to make sure that we are getting out of the way of the city manager, taking politics off the table, giving him the tools he needs to do his job, the freedom and the flexibility, so that you don't see and you don't get what's playing out in our media, in our news, by way of the dysfunction. We right now are living in a sick administration, and that trickles down to our staff. So we want to come and restore harmony back within our community as well as in our city. And so going forward, we will continue to share information related to the things that we want to champion and that we want to see change in our city. In 2019, the electorate spoke loud and clear. They sent an indictment across this region where an entire council, nearly an entire council, was voted out and a new one came in. Only 2 members were left. And those 2 members were the most seasoned left. I submit to you that where they are concerned, Dr. Estella Shabazz and Mayor Van Johnson, it's a game for them. They both knew and know the power of 5. We, as the newbies, the neophytes, we were coming in from a spirit of altruism, seeking to do good, to do the right thing. I think we all were well intended where our platforms were concerned. Unfortunately, in short order, like most politicians, they come in and they are incapable of resisting the madness of the media that will help stroke their egos when they give them FaceTime. They were unable to resist the payouts under the table and over the table. Get a car account at your local Mercedes or BMW dealer, and you can scoot around on a little lease agreement that somebody else is paying for. Take a ride in the jets, go to the fancy dinners, get an invitation to the Christmas parties and the birthday parties. If you are a person of little substance, you will find it very difficult to resist those things. Fortunately, the tagline I had when I ran for office, "Not for sale," it meant a lot to me. And I am pleased to say that your Alderwoman Kesha Gibson Carter has not sold out. And I never will. You see, because for 25 years, I have given this city the best of what I have to offer by way of caring for our community, from victims of rape and sexual violence and domestic violence, to youth who are members of gangs, senior citizens in our community who are nutrition insecure, and to homeless families with children. Caring for those individuals in the most dire time in their lives, where they were at their ultimate low, I took that with me when I went to City Hall. It's still with me now. And so it's very difficult to come to this platform, to come to this table where I'm supposed to be able to effectuate change proactively. That means solving the problem before it exists, or seeing things from afar off and fixing it before it gets here, rectifying those things that are wrong. After working for 20 plus years, reacting to someone's hurt, reacting to their pain, reacting to their misfortune, I now have the time, the chance to come here and respond proactively. Unfortunately, not to the degree of which I want. You see, we still have that problem of it taking 5 members of council to help me get something on the agenda. We'll go into that another time. And so, having not forgotten where I came from or the people I once served, being at this table excites me and it gives me joy because I see that the resources are so plentiful, only to be met by the frustration where you see the waste and you see the denial. Like, how does a council, how does an administration vote to keep the millage rate the same, knowing that people's property taxes are going to go up? All of your taxes are going to increase, by the way, because of that decision. And so we want to make sure that we are keeping consistent with those things that are going to push this community forward, both financially and push us forward and keep us together socially. As a city, as a community, as neighbors, as friends, as colleagues, as schoolmates, as church members, we are far more united than we are divided. But when you have actions that are consistent with decisions that leaders make that give the appearance that we are separate, I submit to you that there is a deliberate intent and effort to keep us divided. But with you, we will stay together because what we want you to do is to continue to engage, and we want you to continue to hold your electorate accountable. One of the other things I said I was going to do is to inspire. We were going to inspire you, advocate for you. I've done that. Our little league teams, for the first time in the history of Savannah, our little league teams and recreational sports groups are getting tangible dollars thanks to our city manager, Jay Melder, in an effort to backdoor our way into averting gang and gun violence on our streets. We are hoping to strengthen the reach of these coaches who have devoted their time free of charge to these teams year after year after year. We have devoted over $1 million to help them with equipment and supplies and all other activities and events that they will engage in. We also are most proud of the fact that for the first time in the history of Savannah, each nonprofit organization who petitioned the city of Savannah via grant dollars, via community services for grant dollars, you receive 100% of your allocation. That's never happened before. We're proud of that, and we want more of that. We are also happy to get finally at bat impact fees. And you will hear that this has been something that the entire council has championed. It was not. Nonetheless, we got it. And this is the trick. Now that I have announced that I'm going to run for mayor, it's going to be like the second hour of the Oprah show. You get a car, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car. So I want all of these groups and these organizations, the Just group, I want you guys to come back and make some demands. Now that you all have these two dueling people who are fighting for you, well, one of them's fighting for another team. I'm fighting for the people. He's fighting for the establishment. We now want you to start making some demands. And I promise you, with everything I know and God loves, you probably going to get what you want this time because I got them on the ropes. I got them on the ropes. I got them on the ropes. And so it doesn't matter what Kesha Gibson Carter gets or doesn't get. But right now, over the next 2 years, he now has to prove to you that I am wrong. And in doing that, he's going to have to respond to you. So you'll see some real movement coming out of local government. Hopefully less task force and more action. But until then, we're going to run on and we're going to see what the end is going to be. And we're going to keep it real and we're going to keep bringing it to you just as you have it. We also want you to know that all hope is not lost with regard to the Weeping Time property. There is a lawsuit pending, and I have with me tonight Pastor Leonard Small. If he's here, we can bring him on now. We're going to talk about where we are with the weeping time, and then we're going to do a countdown of the top 10 or 12 items of 2020. What 2021? Gosh, COVID has us all messed up. Um, the top 20 decisions that were made in 2021 that affects our community and how it's going to affect us in 2022. Dr. Small, if you could start with just giving us an update on where we are with the Weeping Time property, but also let's just jump in there with the countdown.
Okay, with the Weeping Time property, we are about 2.5, maybe 3 weeks away from going to court to having our hearing. Our hearing will take place on February the 18th at 2:30. Judge Lisa Colbert is hearing our case. We have public policy experts who will basically testify that if you have a historic question, it has to go to the Preservation Board. And that's as succinctly as I can put that. They did not send the Brockington report to the State Historic Preservation Board, and therefore any conclusion they got from anyone else would have been specious at best. But they also got a letter from the state archaeological director telling them that she did not rule on historic or archival matters. And so the case was never reviewed properly by the proper entity, even though Michael Brown, the interim city manager, said he was going to send it. We have the letter saying he was going to send it.
And he never sent it. He never sent
it. We were wondering why. We were calling up there trying to find out what the status was. And finally, out of the Holy Ghost, nothing else, I said, no, we're running out of time. This is not looking right. And the day before the lady sent her report back, I went up through some maneuvering of God, got to the right person, happened to have run into a young man whose cousin sat next to me in Savannah High when we were in 10th grade together.
The best high school in Savannah.
You heard. And he, when we got to talking about his cousin, he said, well, let me call this guy. And he called the guy, and the guy said, no, it didn't come to us. I know where it is. And I got in touch with the lady, Miss Rachel Black, gave her our conclusions. She wrote the city back and told them that she was strongly encouraging them to work with our group. Of course, they never did. And that she was writing a letter to the city to that effect, and she did.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of that's a part of our case. And we have experts in public policy, and we have experts in historicity. We have experts who worked on reparations and other historical circumstances on the national level who will actually testify to the fact that if this is reviewed by a historic preservation group, it is obvious that the property in question is associated with the Weeping Time sale. And so we believe, almost without a doubt, that if it's sent to the right people, we can save the property.
Now, let's talk about the dynamics related to when this came before council for approval. There apparently had already been some deals struck between the Salvation Army and the Housing Authority of Savannah, where the property is concerned, in that while Salvation Army was petitioning us for a special use permit, we understand that some maneuvering had already taken place between the Salvation Army and the Housing Authority of Savannah with the property, which ultimately actually belonged to the city.
Yes. And Vang always says, this property belonged to HUD, this property belonged to HUD. Okay, listen to me very carefully. The property belonged to the city of Savannah. We wrote to the division chair for this district of the United States. They wrote us back saying it is clearly a matter of the sale of the property between the city of Savannah and the Salvation Army. That's what the the people from HUD at the state, no, excuse me, at the regional division, which covers 3 or 4 states. They said they reviewed it. They sent it to 2 sets of attorneys, and this possibly would exchange would be between the city of Savannah and the Salvation Army, unlike our mayor kept quoting. On top of that, while we were supposed to be waiting for the study to be executed, not after, while it was being executed, prior to it ever being assigned to the Brockington people who did the study, the Salvation Army and the Housing Authority closed the deal. The study was not sent to the archaeologist, the archaeologists until almost the end of June. They had closed on the deal. They sold the property and bought the property in May, in the middle of May. Now, who would buy property that where the usage was being questioned as to whether it would be approved? Who would close that deal before they knew the outcome of that, unless the fix was in?
Right.
Okay, and that's the kind of stuff we're dealing with. But if we get our day in court, we'll lay our facts on the table. The judge will rule for us or against us, and then we'll decide what to do after that. Because here's the thing, people, and the mayor, as far as I'm concerned, it's over. Well, as far as you're concerned, Mr. Mayor, but it ain't over till we say it's over. You know, the fight's not over until everybody in the fight quit. Even if I'm losing the fight's still going on as long as I'm fighting. And that's the way this works. I came up under L. Scott Stell, W. Law, Rima Pendergrass. Okay, I came up under Addie Byers. I came up under Margaret Bannister. I came up under those ladies who fought until they died. I came up under those men who and with guys. I came up under a man who got blown up with a bomb in his office. You think I'm a weak person? You think I'm gonna quit when I saw them bring my friend out, blowed up and bloodied? No. Even if it's only for the remembrance of Robbie Robinson, I cannot turn back. I cannot stop. And then I almost died 2 years ago. I'm living past my time. So what am I going to do? I'm going to be so grateful. I'm going to work until the sun goes down. I'm going to fight until the battle is won. I'm going to keep my hand on the blood-stained plow until God calls me home. I have nothing else to do with the life God gave me but stand up for righteousness. And that's what we're going to do as far as all these, and the way they're treating these sisters. And I understand they're grown women, but for me, they're sisters. And if anybody abused my sister when I was a little boy, I didn't have sisters, I only had brothers. But if someone would have abused my sister or one of my best friend's sisters, I would have gone to school and beat up the classroom. No. We need to, and I know they don't feel like they need to be protected because they're full grown and they can fight. And if you saw Kesha the other night, y'all know she ain't nobody to play with. But I'm telling you all, I just can't, it made me so angry. And then they snatched fairness from us. They snatched justice from us. They are playing games, using statements that they don't even know the meaning of. They keep Kesha from making a point. Palumbo kept saying, personal privilege, point of order, perfect. A point of order is simply this. I need to educate our people. A point of order is when someone does something that's outside of the rules of Robert's rules. And you cannot raise a point of order when someone has the floor unless there is a pause in their argument. You can't raise it while they're talking. That's what it means for a person to have the floor. So they're breaking all the rules and in the process abusing the seats that we've elected them to. But they don't have to worry about that. Like Kesha said, we're going to have a changing of the guard. And yes, they're going to do fairer. They're going to be better. Van's going to be better than the black community. You know why? Because now, 2 years out, he has competition that he can't beat. Keisha's been surprised, and she told me this. I'm gonna tell you business. Her and her husband told me, man, the outpouring of support all of a sudden. And I've been telling them for years, what you see at WTOC and among the bougies is not the way Savannah is. You got to remember, when nobody thought that Alicia, because she was brash, because she was loud and bold, Alicia, no, she can't win. She ain't gonna win. So even people in my family, Pastor Leonard, you know, we love you, but that lady cussing, she ain't gonna be able to win. So, and I said, no, y'all don't know what the people are thinking. That's what's wrong with y'all. Alicia got more votes than anybody else in the whole election. And who came in second? And, I mean, just by hair, Keisha Gibson Carter. Who was second? And who was third? Van Johnson. Citywide, he came in last. Spank your baby if he bad. So I'm telling you in no uncertain terms, not only, and I've been asking her to run. I don't know, Pastor. I don't know, Pastor. I've been asking her to run. He fooled around and made her mad, and she said, I'm running. Thank you, Jesus.
Well, you know, and to that point, you actually reminded me of something, Pastor. You know, in 2019, 7 of us won. Well, 6 of us won. Dr. Shabazz didn't have any competition. And former Mayor Eddie DeLoach and Van Johnson were the 2 standing in the December 3rd race. And previous to that, we wanted to be on the right side of history. You know, never before was there a super African-American majority. And, you know, I kind of ascribe to that ignorance that's kind of known in the old school political scene where they say it's your turn, it's your time, recognizing that it should never be about somebody's time or their turn. It should only be who's ready and who's going to do the right thing, who has the.
She mashed the wrong button. So while I'm here by myself, yeah, well, as far as I'm concerned, it is your time. I've been waiting for our time all these years. I thought when you all got elected for the first time, you know, after you've been involved in civil rights since 1960. And this it's 2021, 22. And you've been doing this since 1960? That's 60-some years. And now we've got a supermajority on council in this foolishness. Something's gone wrong. And it's going to have to be fixed. Something is going bad wrong. And since she's off, let me say this. I want you to hear this. So that the city of Savannah is the only municipal government, only corporate government entity that I know of anywhere. And I'm all over the South. I'm all over the southeastern Georgia, the southern part of South Carolina, and the northern part of Florida. I'm in all these communities. This is the only place where people sitting on council can't put anything on the agenda. Hey, I got my buddy. Hey, Julius, how you doing, buddy?
How you doing, Pastor?
We Keisha now. She gone.
We'll speak for her. Yeah, go ahead, keep on.
Here's the argument for me. What do we do now? What do we do now? Now that we have come to this point where they've done so much, and here's what happened. I want y'all to hear this because this is super. I think Savannah Alliance of Ministers, I was a part of it for a minute, but I didn't see anything we were doing. So I don't stay in things that are not trying to do things. But all of a sudden, they decided that they would try to mediate the situation with the mayor. Now, once the threat to the mayor's regime got pushed forward, and Kesha announced, it wasn't planned, and Kesha announced, now she's not going to take it back. Now, all of a sudden, they're asking them to come to a meeting. They came to a meeting over at Connor's Temple, and Kesha, Alicia, Renetta asked me to come. I told them, no, I ain't coming. Why would I come? The only thing they were asking them to come there to do was to be quiet, go and learn how to go along and get along, just like they go along to get along. And so I told them, no, I ain't coming. And they called me 3 times. I think you were in the room one time when they called me, Julius. And I'm not going to that. I don't do dog and pony. I'm not going to that because they're not serious and they're hiding. If they really wanted to do this, they would come out and make a public statement. Let's bring them together and bring the mayor in the room and sit down and come to some reasonable compromises. Like the fact that at first it was 4 of them, including Estella Shabazz, who wanted to get things on the agenda. They did not, for over 2 years, they have not let them put one thing on the agenda. For over 2 years. Who does that? And what populace allows that? What city, what county allows that type of behavior? And no place else in the state of Georgia that I know of has a situation where people who were duly elected can't put items on the agenda for discussion. You can still vote any kind of way you want to, but you can't. It's like it's killing the voice of all the people who voted to support these people.
You know, Pastor, I think that one of the things that the people need to do is to question their pastors and ask them, what was that meeting about and whose side are you on, the people or are you on somebody else's side? Are you on the people's side or the devil's side? You know, because God is for the people. These are God's people. So if you're calling a meeting and you want all of us there on the first day, and you want to pray for all of us on this first day, and then you call a second meeting and then you only want a certain group of people there, there's a problem with that to me, because then you're saying that those people who you're calling back are the problem. Got our host back.
She's back. She's back.
I think it's sabotage. Somebody turn my lights off.
I probably did that because I wanted to talk. Now, wait a minute. Let me say this one thing. I want you to hear this. If you're a Black preacher in the city of Savannah and you are on the sidelines, if you are missing in action, or if you, as a result of your temerity, have allowed yourself to be a prisoner of war, that we can't come and get you, we can't find you, and you can't fight with us on the weeping time. Forget everything else. How can a Black preacher in 2022 and all of one not come out to preserve the heritage for our young Black children coming behind us? How can you decide that this is not your fight? Were these not your people? Were these not your family? Do you have no sympathy? And how can white folk white experts be coming to the table, to the fore, to testify, to try to save Black folks' heritage? It's American heritage included, but ours in particular. How can a Black preacher in Savannah, any of you sorry, you heard what I said. And don't say, well, Pastor, you shouldn't talk about the preachers. What would Jesus do? Because Jesus stood up in what we call the Olivet Discourse and called them snakes and hypocrites to their face. And I'm saying that all of them who called y'all to that meeting And somebody said, Pastor, you sound like you're mad and emotional. That's because I'm mad and emotional. I have a problem with this.
And you know what, Pastor, I appreciate it, and you didn't want us to go to the meeting, but out of respect, because I respect the clergy in our community, and I also respect the fact that everybody is not a fighter, rather they are a mediator. And there's argument there as to who and what they should be. Now, I feel like the meeting was well intended, but I think the motive was not clearly. I don't know that they were honest about the motive.
You being political.
No, and I sincerely respect them all. I sincerely respect them all. I really do. I just think that the timing and the people who they connected with first, minus the leader. You know, Pastor, I said to one of the pastors in the room, if the bishop knew that there was a problem within his congregation, one of his congregations in Savannah, and he came down to mediate and to find out what the problem is or was, he's not just going to call the trustees, the missionaries, and the BTU and the two members at large, and not talk to the pastor, not talk to the leader. Right. And so I asked the question, are you singling us out because we are perceived troublemakers or noisemakers? And one of the pastors was honest and said yes. And so another pastor stated that it was because of what they had seen on the news and how we were acting. The part that's hurtful for me, and I'm sincere about this, but I'm okay. If the part that you saw on the news where we were behaving badly, I don't know what part of the meeting they watched to say that, but what wasn't it last year when they stretched me wide and hung me high with the ethics complaint and had my face plastered on the front page of Savannah Morning News for more than a week, had my name in the airways, a part of the top 3 lead stories of every single media outlet, because I allegedly cursed out somebody and hit somebody with a pocketbook. Come on now. And to this day, no one has heard me say, they don't even have a recording of me saying, cursing either one of them out, because I never cursed them out. Mm-hmm. I cursed the process of the mayor cheating the city manager search. Mm-hmm. I, as an adult person, offer expletives in reaction to his behavior. Now, you can judge me as a Christian and say you shouldn't be cursing. Yes. But what you can't do is use that as a whipping tool when you could have very well carried out those duties without the ethics complaint, just as you could have done it without the reprimand, and it could have been done in private, in executive session, which we haven't had in months. Mm-hmm. Because you wanted to use the platform of the business of our government, the platform we use to take care of the business of our government. You wanted to use that because he has the power and the influence over the media, who is owned by the establishment. And so you add the extra layer of theatrics by saying, let's take it to the board and for a vote. Now, we had 22 items on that agenda. Yeah. That reprimand was the last item to remove me as chair of council, guys, which means absolutely nothing. Yeah. The only thing the chair of council does is receive the lawsuits against the city. So you've taken me off of the list. And the reason why we don't function in the roles of vice chair and chair, because the mayor exhibits tyrannical behavior and he won't allow us to do committee work. He won't allow us to come together and work out issues related to our government so that we can work on legislation and work on policies. You would rather convey individuals for a task force who you are actually using as your quasi-election team people, and you are basically manipulating them, and you're using people. And so you don't use the people who the citizens of Savannah elected. And so, again, I appreciate the effort, I appreciate the intent, but unless and until we can do a few things, and that is revert back to our regular way of business. You mentioned nowhere in the United States does it take an alderperson 5 votes. It doesn't happen anywhere in the United States, Pastor.
That's right.
I've traveled to the National League of Cities and surveyed hundreds of people.
That's crazy.
It doesn't happen. And what does that mean to the everyday layperson? That means if there is an issue for your organization, for your group, for your church, for your community, as easy as they got together and conjured up a consensus for 5 votes to remove me as chair of council, they could have easily gotten together to say, I want to revitalize the Skidaway Road corridor. They could have easily gotten together and said, you know what, Parkside, we are with you. We hear you. We don't support this Wicklow project. I want 4 other members to join me, Alderman Palumbo. You could have gotten 4 more members to vote that petition down for that neighborhood. Mm-hmm. One person could have taken the weeping time to council and said, you know what? We need to preserve this property. Here's the proof. Here's the evidence. And besides, at the end of the day, over 400 people were sold into slavery. Just 5 votes. You can't get 5 votes to preserve African-American heritage, and you have 7 Black people on the council.
There you go.
You know, and so when you see how we have manipulated the use of our public goods, like our police officers, we're down over 100 police officers in the city of Savannah. And that doesn't include the ones who are suspended and on sick leave. Over 100. And we have a sworn police officer that's assigned to the mayor to go get his lunch and his breakfast and his dinner and drive him around and open his doors. No other mayor has needed that or has had it in Savannah.
Let me tell you how petty they are. Let me do this. Let me do this for you. Forget the stuff you've been seeing. Let me tell you how petty it is at City Hall. They've been in office now for 2 years. 2 years ago, they started putting together offices for the alderpersons in City Hall. They remodeled, and it's ugly. They remodeled the mayor's office. I'm serious. It's not what you would put in that building. I brought historic buildings in Savannah back to period, like the Juliet Garden Low House. When I was doing construction, I was good at that. Now, but they were supposed to be making offices 2 years ago for the alderpersons, but because he would not have these particular alderpersons comfortable with officers in City Hall and give all of them a collective secretary or somebody to help manage their processes while they're on these chump change $25,000 salaries a year, to keep them from being comfortable and feeling good about what they're doing. They have been working on those offices for over 2 years. They ain't got in there yet. I could have built a space.
No, they reassigned them. So they reassigned them and they put staff in the offices.
Okay, well, I could have.
So that was a punishment for me advocating to end the contract for Savannah Morning News, where we were paying all this money to rent one floor. I can't remember. It was akin to something like what we have for the parking pad at the arena. Julius, do you remember how much it was a month? I think I don't know. I can't remember. It's like $50,000 a month, something ridiculous.
And that's why the newspaper could not write anything but what Van and those wanted, because the city was their largest renter.
I think
Right.
it was $700,000 a year. Isn't
It was a crazy amount of money.
Yeah,
it?
it's I can't believe I forgot that because
$57,000 a month.
I advocated really, really hard to end that contract because the offices that were out there on Chatham Parkway were most of the offices that were needed in the core of the city.
Yeah.
You know, out Chatham Parkway is almost out of Savannah. So you have community services department, you had the IT department, you had the HR department, all out on Chatham Parkway. It in this big executive suite in Savannah Morning News, and we basically were just helping them save the paper, you know.
Yeah.
And so and here we
Friends
are.
helping friends.
Yes, but what I want to say is I'm hopeful. I was grateful for the time that we had with the pastors. I'm encouraged. I just hope that the motivation of me announcing that I'm going to run for mayor doesn't stop there, because I'm not going to stop. As I said to them, this is a person who possessed the propensity to wreak this kind of havoc on this community. He has been so laser focused on COVID that he hasn't seen sight to address or touch anything else remotely close to being community oriented. I submit to you that we have had more African American boys under the age of 18 die from gun violence than COVID, but we don't see any emergency or resolutions for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where is your concern? Where is your concern? Stop being one dimensional. And that's what we want our pastors to say. And then one of the appeals that I made to them in terms of what they can do to help us, in addition to doing away with that 5-vote foolishness, 5 members of council for consensus, contact the media and make a demand to them and tell the members of your congregations to boycott the paper and boycott the 6 o'clock, the 5:30, the 4 o'clock, and the 11 o'clock news until they can report more accurately. Because when you watch the city council meeting, one of the pastors said to me, Kesha, I watched the news and I was so upset and so disturbed. I went back and I actually watched the meeting. And what the media reported and what actually happened, it didn't match.
No.
And another pastor acknowledged that he had a communications and broadcast journalism background, and he understood the intent when the media sensationalizes things, because confusion and distraction sells. But we have to be more responsible and hit them in the pocketbook. You know, the advertisers that advertises with the paper and with the media outlets, contact them and tell them, I don't want to be associated with this part of tearing my community down, because it does become divisive. And when you have the media who engages in irresponsible journalism, it adversely affects our community. Because when you start hiding crime stats and crime numbers, they are barely reporting on crime and homicide in real time in our community.
Yep.
And when you don't talk about and you don't spotlight and have a breaking news story on Midtown becoming almost 80% gentrified, you do this community a disservice.
Well, besides that, here's the strangest thing that I saw in that meeting. Wasn't what your announcement and fussing and stuff like that. Strangest thing I saw in that meeting was about 8 or 10 white folk came up there and asked a simple question about tearing down the overpass over Martin Luther King Boulevard. And the task force has been meeting for about 10 or 12 years. And here's a strange statement they made: reclaiming Old West Broad Street. Why would we even want to talk about reclaiming Old West Broad Street when we know that that group of folk are talking about white folks coming in, getting that high-end property and developing it for themselves? If in order to reclaim it, like Alicia was saying, the term reclaim means we had it, we lost it, and we're going to get it back again. Well, the people who had it were Black folk. So are we going to return it back to Black folk? No, that's not what's going to happen. And when the lady was asked that question, she looked like she was shot. She was like a deer caught in the headlights. And then when Alicia made them stand up and say who all was here to do this, only one Black person. was in the group. And I don't know if he was in the group or he just came to represent the fact that he is on the corridor. My point simply being, if we keep going along just to get along, they're going to take everything that we ever had, every hope, dream, or aspiration. Over and above that, what city in its right mind, because they're going to be taking down this overpass and these exits into the city? If you think about it from a traffic issue, it's blatant stupidity. So you're going to take down the one thing that dumps people coming to Savannah closest to the city center. You're going to take that one out. You build a new arena. So how do you get to it? All you're going to have is Gwinnett Street, 37th Street, and Louisville Road. Why would you build the arena and take away the an artery that would feed the parking? Now, we've already talked about the stupid business we got with the parking with Chatham Steel. That's a mess, okay? But I want everybody to understand, because I keep hearing this number, and I want you to get a better number. The arena itself cost about $160 million. The infrastructure and processes around it cost another $100 million. And so you're looking at $260 million. Now, here's the strange thing about this deal. We then give the management to a group of people who, at best, for those $250 million we're spending, will give us back about $5 million a year. You spend $250 million and you get back $5 million a year while you're servicing the loans and bonds on the process, which you're going to end up paying out more than you're bringing in. This is the dumbest set of deals I've ever seen. Then you cut a deal with the Tenenbaums on Chatham Steel to build a parking lot. You're going to build it. Then you got to mitigate the saw. And then you don't buy the land. You lease the land. And you only lease it for a certain amount of time. And when the time is over, all he does is say, I'm not going to renew the contract. He's got a parking lot. He gets all the money from the parking lot and you paved it. This is dumber than a box of rocks going to church. It doesn't make any sense.
Generational wealth.
This is the business. This is the business that we're in. And sometimes it takes a person who simply understands balance sheets and business and money to explain it to us, to make sure we understand what's really going on. And if they could threaten Josie Shepard with eminent domain in order for him to sell a portion of his little small service station on the corner, good business, good guy. Why couldn't we use eminent domain with Chatham Steel? Even swap is not a swindle.
Exactly. They took we fought for Mr. Josie as much as we could. Okay. They took his property.
And Charlie Brown.
His property, left him a slither, but then you are overpaying the Tenenbaums.
Oh yeah.
And again, that's when I say the system, it's the system that is racist. And when it's these type of behaviors exist, this is what trickles over into our community and causes the divide. So we can never fully heal. We know that racism and discrimination and prejudice is going to be with us until the end of time. But what you don't need is your local government to perpetuate it. You need your local government and its leaders to serve as an example of who and what we can be. And so as we go forward, we want to recognize that we need your voice, Pastor Small. We need the voice of the pastors who we were with today, who now have a better understanding. We need your voice, Mr. Hall, and your platform, unless and until we can get responsible leadership who is brave enough to be honest. It takes bravery to be honest because you're not always going to be right. But when you are gaslighting the people and when you are fueling the special interest group more than the administration we actually voted out, when we start to see now that Eddie's old friends are now Van's new friends on paper when it comes to the money, when his voting record now matches his donor dollars, that's where we see we have a problem. And this is an individual who cannot be trusted with another 4 years because if you give him a final term, he's going to go to work on this city overtime. And so, Mr. Hall, what is it that we can do and what is it that you have seen in the media that keeps us with this misinformation? Because there are people out there who still don't get it.
Well, they all play on the same golf courses every week, but Van don't play golf, so he's not out there. But the people that control him, they all play golf together. This is a plan. This is the 30-year plan, the 50-year plan. All these things are coming into fruition. You think that there's some sci-fi that we're watching? This ain't sci-fi. This is real life. Van is all fluff. We need everybody here watching to come and volunteer to get rid of those people. Pastor Smalls and I will be on the front lines every day. And I'm not playing with you every day. You're going to see us there. But to answer your question, we need a media source that is going to be fair and honest with our communities. This is what we try to provide here at ATR, which is going to be OUR, which in our OUR is outspoken, unapologetic, and real. We're going to keep it that way. And we need everybody that's watching here, all 50-something of you who are live now and all couple of hundred that have been tuning in and out. We need you to tell somebody about this platform so that we can uplift our people. It takes all of us. We speak for we. Mm-hmm. And if we don't do that, then we're destined to fail. Because in the long run, they're just going to eat us up because we keep putting those people in there who we trust, and they keep betraying us. But the vetting has to be a little bit better now. If you're not going to talk like we're talking, we don't trust you no more because it has to be a change. It has to be a change, and the change starts now. These people think that we're playing with them, but we're going to show you in a short few months, we ain't playing with you. They thought I was playing with them in Port Wentworth. We ain't playing with you. They thought we was playing with them last term when we got y'all in there. We ain't playing with you no more. It's a new type of politics going on. Y'all will see real soon.
And you got to understand, I came up under the thought of that you hear people say over and over, well, why don't y'all go and get in a room and don't air all this in front of white folks. That's how I was trained coming up. And you know what? 60 years later, we still having these struggles. So I'm not going to keep running the same play if it don't work. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm not going to let them covertly keep us silent while we are beheaded. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So I'm going to let me show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put out a challenge, an easy challenge. NAACP, state your case on the weeping time. How can we have an NAACP that has not made a statement concerning the weeping time property? How can that, where could that exist except Savannah? Okay. Secondly, Black Ministers Associations, all of you, including White Ministers Association for that matter, state your claim on the weeping time property. State your position. Your silence is consent to it being destroyed. State your claim. You got to remember, one of the great shames that the disciples had the rest of their life was when they took Jesus, the disciples ran. And the one that followed and stood outside, he lied and said he didn't know him. You people are acting like you don't know that 429 people were sold on March 2nd and 3rd, 1859. You're acting as just you don't know that a man stood there and watched other men grope and feel their wife before they would buy them. You acting like you don't know that a brother looked across at his brother and realized he was being sold to Louisiana and his brother was going to North Carolina and they would not see each other the rest of their lives. You acting like you don't know that this was a travesty and heinous victimizing of our people. You're acting like you don't. Jews are angry about the Holocaust. New Yorkers are angry about 9/11. America is angry about Pearl Harbor. And you're not angry about slavery? Who are you people?
Yes.
Where did you come from? Did anybody train you? Did anybody tell you who we are, where we come from, what we went through, how we bled, how we died, how we suffered, how we still suffer? I don't understand. But just because I don't understand, that doesn't mean I will not be pointing it out.
And so with that, we're going to give a quick rundown. And Pastor, I just thank God for you so much, because really and truly, I think we would have the whole world against us if we didn't have your voice. And so I want to thank you for recognizing the obvious real early. And you are doing this amidst a fight for your life, maintaining your health. And we want to say a special thank you to First Lady Smalls for all that she does to allow you whenever you're being obedient. And I want to apologize for you not being able to speak. Mayor Johnson disallowed your American right to speak on a governmental platform during the city council meeting. We apologize for that, sir.
So you don't have to apologize. That was Mayor Johnson who would not let me speak on an item on the agenda at city council, which is flat out against the rules.
Right. You, as well as Gentleman Protocol.
That's right.
I don't even know his real name. What's his real name, Julius?
I don't. What protocol?
Julius knows.
You muted.
I think he's muted. Okay, so we're going to go through.
I was muted on purpose.
A few topics. We will give a quick rundown and predict how these issues affected and will change our 2022. So these are topics for 2021, things that happened in 2021 or concerns we have for 2021. And we want to, it's real quick with each one, either of you can chime in. We want to know how will it change or affect us in 2022. Let's start with the arena.
Okay, with the arena, how will it change or affect us? It will make the people who live in Fraser Homes, Caton Homes, Cloverdale, and Carver Village more vulnerable to, I don't call it gentrification, I call it economic segregation.
And Brickyard.
All those people living in those areas are in jeopardy of being supplanted. It's really that simple.
And the concern I have also, Pastor, is with quality of life. If you think about it, I mean, what is traffic going to be like? What is noise? The new foot traffic. We've done several cleanups in that area, and the litter is already out of control.
Oh, yeah.
So we also recognize that quite possibly will be a new corridor for hotels.
Definitely.
As they are talking about developing the Canal District. We also want to talk about homicide. You know, my whole thing is from crime to weeping time. Where do you predict we will be?
If we don't get a change at the top in the police department, and I'm talking about the chief, I tell it like it is, and somebody will, well, Pastor, you know, he's the chief of police. Aren't you worried he might fool around and come back at you? Yeah, he can, but I don't do anything. I don't commit no crimes. I don't do anything. that the police need to be bothered about. But if they do, I wouldn't be the first civil rights leader to be victimized by unjust police. Having said that, I remember us ramping up how many people we were hiring into the police department. And as soon as we ramped them up and got them in, they got in, saw what was going on, realized that this place is not being run well. And many of them, even some who came to me for counseling, decided, I want to be a police officer, but I can't do it. They saw the young man who reported the mine concerning Harvey's death in the police headquarters. They saw him fired unjustly. And many of them said, we walk in on eggshells, knowing that at any point in time, it could be us. And most people don't know how many of our people have been dismissed from the police department because they threatened them and they resigned.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got a mess. And if you and people can, well, police can't reduce crime. Well, what they for?
Mm-hmm.
What are they for then? The police department, a good police department will reduce crime. Good police officers do help with bad behavior. We can do this, but we have to have the resolve and we have to have the leadership. And here's the thing: William Harvey died, and this is people who don't care. He died of super suspicious causes. Now they said he killed himself. Me nor his family believe that to this day. But here's the strange part. Neither the mayor nor the chief of police spoke to that family for more than a month. And when I said, well, in an interview, when I said with his mother standing next to me, I said, they haven't spoken to this family for more than a month. She said for 34 days, she was counting. She was counting. These people are callous and heartless, and they literally don't care. They think that people are beneath them and therefore do not deserve the regard that they would give to people that they think that they believe have status. So I think we are in absolute trouble. There is not one solution being given from the police department to reduce crime. I was at a couple of meetings that they had, but those meetings led to nothing.
But Pastor, I think this is one of the problems that we have in this community, in some other communities, but in this community in particular. When you don't have a group of people standing up in unity to address these issues, they will disregard whatever those like us are saying, because they know that we don't have the people with us to really bring the complaint that will make them listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they bank on. This police chief don't give a damn about what you, excuse my French, what me and you say.
That's not French. I took French.
He doesn't care what me and you say. Man doesn't care what the people say because he's fooling everybody. He's all fluff. Mm-hmm. He knows how to wiggle around any question you ask.
He's good.
And make you think that he's telling the truth. He fooled me every 2 weeks eating lunch with him. He fooled me. Everybody, y'all don't think I'm just talking about Van. Me and Van ate lunch every 2 weeks, having strategies before he announced.
Wow.
And the thing I wanted to say before I got cut off, Julius, to that point, myself and Alderwoman Blakely, we actually campaigned for Van leading up to that December 3rd election. I mean, we traveled this city, went to churches, went to community centers, and we said, send us to City Hall with somebody we know we could work with. But I submit to you today, now me and Eddie DeLoach have a love-hate relationship. He's really a good guy. I just don't like his politics. But he's a really, really nice guy, and I adore his wife. I adore his wife. I do not think Eddie DeLoach would have been treating us this way.
True.
I guarantee you, because at the end of the day, he's a man. He's a real man. And he has a wife who I know would not tolerate what is being done to us just as women.
Mm-hmm.
But he would have at least, we're not asking for the moon and the stars, y'all. We're just asking to give people back their fair share.
Yes.
And I believe we would have had the influence and the power to work with Eddie to get people something.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it would not have been a challenge or a fight, but I do believe we would have had far more opportunity to come to consensus with him, because this person we work with as our leader, he has some psychological problems. I'm almost convinced of that. A person who would try to date my sister, romanticize my sister on the campaign trail to go against, boy, is you crazy? I got the receipts for that too. I got all the text messages you sent her and the ones you sent while we're in contentious, heated
He was just
council meetings. Come on,
you
crazy.
That wasn't real.
He's crazy. Well, we know what that was. We already know what that was.
That's part of the plan.
That's camouflage.
Back to our police. We already this month have lost 8 police officers, and we just had a police pinning ceremony. And when I say we're losing just as many as we're recruiting, we just recruited 15 who, guess what? They have to be partnered with somebody before they go out. So that's equitable to losing more than we are recruiting.
Yep.
Because we just lost 8 in the month of January. It's not even over. So what does that mean? That means that we do not have adequate police coverage in our community. And the little bit we do have, they are being assigned to downtown. And they're not being assigned to our downtown residents. They're being assigned to our downtown parties and tourists.
Sure.
Our residents downtown are suffering just as much as people in our inner city. They deserve more support and harmony. And so, again, when you have the bloodiest month already is the first month of the year. That homicide, that shooting that resulted in a homicide, 4 people were actually shot in that one crime. And it was a 13-year-old. And so going forward, I agree with you. Unless we see some changes in leadership, we are not going to make a difference where crime is concerned. And you already talked about the weeping time, and we have the predictions there, and that we're hopeful that we will be victorious in court. And then we have finally, and I had millage rate on the list, but we know what's going to happen there. People's property taxes will go up because the majority on council voted for your taxes to remain the same. I got a call from a 95-year-old woman over off of Park Avenue in the 2nd District. She cannot afford the increase in her property taxes because real estate in her area now exceeds, well, the sale of one of the sales is something like $750,000
per unit. That's a series of units next to each other, and one of them costs $750,000.
Right. There's 4 units, and one costs $750,000. So she already can't afford it because of previous sales in the neighborhood. So what do you think is going to happen when those sell?
Yep.
And so we finally have our city manager. Our city manager, poor guy. Oh God, he is really a nice person.
He is.
I like Jay Melder a lot.
I haven't met him.
You haven't met Jay Melder. We'll have to arrange that. So listen, I think of the 4 city managers I've had since I've been in office, and that's the other dysfunction, part of the dysfunction. I've been in office for 2 years, and this is our 4th city manager. And so when we look at the opportunities that we are missing related to establishing continuity so that we can keep these issues that we're trying to solve fluid, we always have to do this stop and start. Like with our workshops. The workshop should be dedicated to educating the public as well as informing the council on some item that is happening in real time or affecting our community in real time that we can solve. But what we use the workshop for is a diversion. And so Jay Melder, for as much as I know, uh, is trying. Is trying. At least where I am concerned, I can sincerely say that as a leader within the administration, I feel more supported with him than I ever have with any of the other city managers. That's the most I could say for right now. Um, I feel like the little bit of the few home runs we have, it's only because of his open door, um, and the fact that he listens and he tries. And so I'm grateful for that. I'm encouraged that we will continue to have a good working relationship. But what we cannot do is allow for his thought that his contractual agreement relegates him to supporting the majority on council. We have to get past that when he is the chief executive officer of the city. And yeah, and that's where we have a problem. And I think that's where experience. This is his first time as a city manager. He has always had the uh, number two seat, and I think that's where having someone who has that first seat experience would have served him well. But everything happens for a reason. I truly believe that this man did not come to Savannah, Georgia with the depth of his experience and success to fall on his face and to let these crazy people in Savannah make him ruin his career. So,
Well, they tried to ruin the career of our first Black female city manager. She left Savannah and did better.
Rochelle Small Tony. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but she left Savannah and did better. And I want people to understand Savannah has so much potential. A few years ago, the entire budget for the city of Savannah within the last 5-6 years was $100 million less than it is today. 175, $160 million was the entire budget for the city of Savannah 5-6 years ago. This year, it's about 480.
Yes.
About $480 million.
479. Mm-hmm.
Okay, $479 million. I want you to wrap your mind around the fact that the city of Savannah has more than 20% more money coming through it. There's enough money so that those people that were thrown under the bridge, bus, and train out of Clearview should have had a place to land. There's enough money that we should not be displacing people and talking about we're going to tear down Fairwood. I mean, we're going to tear down Yamacraw. When if you drive by Yamacraw, you could look at it and know that that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So, and the documents that went to HUD said it would take $40 million to revitalize it and make it a livable space. That's just a lie from the pit of hell. That's $173,000 per unit, and there's hardly anything wrong with the outside at all, and only generally plumbing and HVAC issues on the inside. And I'm telling you, and no one's so it boggles the mind how we are allowing people who now feel like they've made it to disregard people who are trying to survive.
Right.
That makes no sense. And here's the thing. Most of these people consider themselves Christians. Most of these people go to somebody's church and talk about somebody's Jesus.
Oh, they love God.
And so how can it be that you care about God and don't care about the epitome of his creation, humankind? We need to understand it is a Christian thing to lift up the downtrodden. He does say the poor you'll have always among you, but other places he asks you how you want to treat them, because the way you treat them determines how you would treat me.
That's right.
And so we're going to have to get some heart back in the city. We're going to have to get some caring back in the city. And 2 years from now, we're going to do that. And they know that. The newspaper, WTOC, JCL, SAV, everybody knows. They know better than most black folk know, that the most viable political candidate in Georgia, in the city of Savannah, in our region, is named Kesha Gibson Carter. Now she can go ahead and be shy about it. She can all go ahead and try. I don't know. Forget all that foolishness. I'm telling you what the gospel truth is. The most viable political candidate, and they know it, and they're trying to undermine you. They're trying to silence you. All of a sudden, now the preachers want to meet with you. After last week, we've been needing them for 2 years.
For real.
We've been needing them for 2 years. And I'm telling you, that announcement got them to get together and say, we got to do something now. We got to do something, because they know you're going to beat the bricks off them. And that's the name of that too. You're going to beat them like they slapped your mom.
The only way we're going to have change is we got to have people that care. And right now we don't have a lot of people that care. We got a few people. These are the women who are fighting for the people. My problem is that the people who aren't watching don't really understand. See, my wife ran into two ladies talking while she's shopping, like she always do. She's shopping, she's shopping, and hear two women talking about you, Alderwoman, and she had to stop and set the record straight. They don't really understand what's going on. They thought you were put off council. They thought that you were gone. They was talking about good riddance. They don't know. See, because they don't understand. All they listen to is the sound bites. Somebody text me, message me about, you. I had to straighten her. And when I finished, she said, well, I appreciate that because I didn't know it. We have to educate the people who aren't looking. And we got to count on all these 60-something people up here looking now to start telling people the message. Don't keep it to yourself, the good news. Don't keep the good news of Jesus, how they used to say back in the day. Don't keep the good news of Kesha Gibson Carter to yourself. Tell somebody. Bring somebody to the campaign, because we coming and ain't nothing you can do about
it.
Well, this is I appreciate that. And because I am being carried by a force that's far greater than me. And as I stated at the top of the show, if I had to think about what I was doing, I wouldn't do it. Because it's really not me, but I just happen to be really good at what it is that I do. And that's loving people and caring for people and being a compassionate person. I went through this when I was at the Rape Crisis Center. After decades of a stellar record of performance in every job that I've ever done in this city, I find myself on the other side of this political arena where it's perceived that I am a threat to somebody's office, i.e., the district attorney, Meg Heap. And because I challenge the system, not her, I challenge the system. As opposed to her recognizing the challenge and following through accordingly, she maneuvered and got 9 or 10 chiefs of police, not police officers, chiefs of police, from Tybee Island to Port Wentworth, from Pooler to Thunderbolt, to sign off on a document that was false against my person. And in short order, a group of board members followed suit and were basically influenced by this conspiracy. After that act, because of who they were and what I was doing, providing support to rape victims, advocating for rape kits to be tested and for rapists to be arrested and identified, I was made out to be this villain. After nearly doubling the organization's bottom line, expanding services to reach multiple counties, increasing the staff, increasing their salaries, increasing our volunteer support, everybody in the city of Savannah, the county of Chatham and surrounding communities knew about the Rape Crisis Center. in that it was a resource for advocacy and prevention education. We started making headways in our local schools. And all of that work was derailed because of selfishness. And that's what I saw in Van Johnson. And so I'm not afraid of what the media once did to me by plastering my name in the airways. Executive Director of the Rape Crisis Center, Kesha Gibson Carter. Executive Director resigns, or the Executive Director is terminated. They couldn't make up their mind what happened, right? And my name was whispered in the airways. And then they had to change my name. They had to change my name to Alderwoman Kesha Gibson Carter. And wow. This was after I had to not only run against my opponent, who raised almost 100 times more money than I raised. It's on the books for her about 200 plus thousand, and I barely raised 20. The Savannah Morning News endorsed every candidate who lost in that 2019 race.
That's right.
You did.
The media outlets were very unfair in their coverage of my announcement and my campaign. After they changed my name to Alderwoman Kesha Gibson Carter, I come to City Hall. I come to this office. I enter this arena with that same vigor, with the same passion, but with more, because now I recognize what and who I'm dealing with. And I also recognize that there was a correlation between all of those players. The players are the same. The players are the same. And so now, before I say goodnight to you, I submit to you, citizens of Savannah, those who I love so much, that once again, my name will be changed. Mayor Kesha Gibson Carter.
That's right.
Good night, y'all. I love you. Thank you. I appreciate y'all.
Love you, baby girl.
All right. Good night, everybody. We'll see you here tomorrow night.
Amen.
Amen.